Hello world, and welcome to the YouTube channel with the host with the most. It's me, Uncle Ben.
Me, Hollywood Steve.
And we are Dad and Lovely. On this, our inaugural review episode, we're going to be talking about James Wan's The Conjuring, which if you guys listen to our podcast, which you damn well should, you might have already heard us talk about that on episode 73. Now, I just want to tell you guys straight out that usually the YouTube channel and the podcast aren't going to operate in tandem like this. It's usually going to be more spaced out and separate content.
We like our freedom.
We do like freedom.
We do what we want. But we're lazy, and we were already prepped.
I'll drink to that.
I just hit myself in the face with beer.
Well, Steve, why don't you give me a little summary about what this talkie flick is about?
I shall. Based on the paranormal investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren, James Wan's The Conjuring series is a throwback to old school horror films like The Exorcist, Amityville Horror, and Poltergeist. A classic horror tale of a family moving into a home infested with a demon witch and the team of investigators trying to help them.
So here on the YouTube channel, we're going to be breaking our reviews into 3 different segments. So let's go ahead and get knee deep in the bones of this thing. Let's talk about the direction, production, etc.
Ow, my bones. You might know James Wan's work from the Saw series. He directed the first, Insidious, Furious 7, and Aquaman, which is coming out next year.
I don't have high hopes for that one.
No.
I wouldn't say that I'm like a gigantic fan of a lot of James Wan stuff. I know a lot of people that are into like post-millennial horror stuff love his, stuff with Saw and again Insidious and all that.
A lot of it is look and aesthetic. And that is James Wan. He's real good with the look and feel of a movie and real good at making you feel the tension. But I feel like the stories for both of those movies, yes, they're so derivative of other movies I already know that it's like listening to a greatest hits album by a cover band.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. That is it, man. The cinematography and the look of the movie, I think, is really great. I think he does a good job of kind of keeping it in that 70s kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, that's what he's going for, and he nails it. Yeah,
there's nothing in this movie that feels particularly dated, which to me, pretty much everything from like the mid-90s, especially when they started using CGI and stuff a lot, has the risk of always seeming dated. Yeah, so overall, I would say the production, everything in this flick, is pretty solid. Not much to complain about.
For sure.
While we're talking about the making of this movie, it's also worth mentioning that it is a 100% untouched, true story.
Yep. All absolutely happened exactly as portrayed.
That's what I thought. Film. But is it?
Part of the reason this movie feels so much like Amityville is because the Warrens were actually involved in the Amityville horror investigation.
The real life one.
Yes. So a lot of the feel of this movie being maybe too much like Amityville and stuff, it's from the fact that their investigations were all very similar. Because of their theories.
They come by it honestly. Now let's get a little bit more deeply into this movie and talk about the cast and writing, which are the real blood of this flick. So, Steve, this movie does have a pretty stacked cast going for itself. Who be in this thing?
Vera Farmiga, who is awesome. She plays Norma Bates in Bates Motel, and she's in a ton of other things.
She's great.
Patrick Wilson, who you know from Insidious, maybe. We have Lily Taylor, who you might know from that terrible House on Haunted Hill remake.
Oh, she was in that?
Yeah.
Oh, I totally want to do that on the show sometime. That
no, The
so
Haunting.
Bad.
It was The Haunting. Crap.
It's the same movie.
It is.
It's really the same.
It is.
Both terrible. And it's also got Ron from Office Space in it.
It's got Ron Livingston, who we all know from Office Space.
Yeah.
And you might know him from Boardwalk Empire, which he was great in.
He's always just a guy from Office Space to me. I will say one of the best things about this flick is that it's got a lot of really good performances from the family and their 800 million kids that they have for no reason. I think everybody does a pretty good job. There's a lot of pretty convincing stuff going on screen. I never really got pulled out of the movie from like crappy acting or anything.
Yeah, well, everybody on this set was a veteran. Even the little kids had some work before this, including Renesmee Cullen, who makes
Twilight.
an appearance.
Here's a dog.
We also get an awesome performance from the composer, who also plays Bathsheba the Witch.
Yeah, who's also that demon lady man
the lipstick
thing
demon.
Insidious, yeah. That guy just loves composing and demonizing. He does a good job. I really like the design of the witch and stuff too. And I also like that the witch isn't in the movie hardly at all.
Yeah, just a couple of
flashes.
shots, and then at the end, she kind of looks like her when she's being exorcised.
Yeah, there's kind of a little transformation scene and stuff in there, but I do like the fact that they don't just hit you over the head with the monster in the movie of Bathsheba.
We should talk about writers, Chad and Carrie Hayes.
Some BMX biking mofos.
Yeah, they played the twins in the movie Rad. They also wrote this movie.
Really?
Yeah. They also are writing the upcoming Die Hard prequel.
How can that possibly be good?
I don't know.
I have to work that out for a while now.
I don't know.
They did a good job of writing in some cool stuff in this flick. There's this whole thing that you noticed about the whole Blessed Three thing. Like, threes are like an inside joke among ghosts and demons to like mock the Trinity.
Yeah.
They love that stuff.
They write the events in threes, which is interesting. So we get things like the clapping game. Early on, the kids play it,
and then hands in the closet.
Then the second time, the mother's playing it with the youngest daughter, and we see the hands in the closet. And then the third time, the ghost plays it with the mother.
And it's like pretty effective scare, I gotta say. Pretty good scare.
So each of these scares gets set up by two previous instances where things go just fine, go a little wonky, and then get real crazy.
Reminds me of my honeymoon.
Hey.
But they also did write a whole ton of tropes. So many tropes for me to count.
Yeah, though the tension is built well.
Yeah, it is. It does a pretty good job. It doesn't just like immediately start hitting you with stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, it kind of does. You got the Annabelle beginning, but after that, it kind of mellows out and does ramp up.
But at least none of those jump scares, aside from one single scare where the little girl jumps out from behind her mom.
Yeah. Boo.
None of them are unearned, which is a good thing, and none of them are. I would say campy. We don't have any cat scares.
Yeah, nobody throws a cat at somebody.
No,
that seems to always happen in a lot of these flicks. But there's so many things that, other than just being stuff you'd expect, like jump scares, there's a lot of stuff that's just lifted straight out of other movies.
Yes.
And I don't know, there's a fine line because, like, Tarantino can do that, and you're like, that's cool. He's paying tribute to other movies and stuff.
Right.
But a lot of the things that he's paying tribute to are like pretty deep cut.
Yeah, it's the obscurity.
Yeah. But this is kind of cherry picking like all of the highest notes from other noteworthy horror flicks. Like a red ball bounces out at somebody like from The Shining. There's a kid that looks under the bed like in Poltergeist. There's a creepy tree like Poltergeist.
They even say on their first night in the house, let's christen this house, and then they have marital sex.
Sweet marital bliss.
Which also occurs in Amityville Horror.
Oh yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in this that is, again, you could say is homage to horror greats of yesteryear, or you could say it's just directly lifting instead of coming up with your own ideas. You'll be the judge.
Yeah, you be the judge.
So in my head, the way that I look at this movie as compared to some of the other horror flicks that it does kind of seek to replicate, it's kind of like Greta Van Fleet, okay? Where if you're a young kid and you hear Greta Van Fleet for the first time, you're like, this is so sick. The drums are so big sounding and the guitars are so dirty and the guys singing all high and stuff. And you'll probably think that it's really cool. And it is. Greta Van Fleet is cool. I like that band a lot. But if you've ever heard Led Zeppelin before, you're like, oh, I know where they got literally all of that stuff from. And you could just listen to Led Zeppelin instead.
That is true. They have a number of albums.
They do have a number of records. But, again, in defense of 70s horror flicks and Led Zeppelin music, nobody else is making them right now. So maybe it's kind of okay for somebody else to carry on that torch.
Now, I would compare this film to Bob Ross.
Unhappy little trees.
Yes. A lot of it is maybe paint by number.
Okay.
A lot of it is sort of the same old, same old.
Yeah, pretty unoffensive. Well done. It's there. I didn't know that Grandma could do that.
And for anyone who thinks I'm dissing on Bob Ross, I'm not.
Oh, hell no.
Love Bob Ross.
Absolutely so.
But, his paintings are pretty generic. And they don't really have a point of view. And I would say this movie almost falls into that crack.
So now let's get into the final section of our review where we talk about all the really good stuff in a horror flick. I'm talking about all that blood, all that gore, all them special effects. Let's talk about them guts.
Let's get all up in them guts.
And when it comes to talking about the gore and special effects and stuff, there's not really a lot to say about this movie. Not a whole lot going on. And I gotta say, that kind of shows some range from James Wan too, because especially if you've just seen Saw,
oh yeah,
you think it's like, oh, this guy just seeks to scare you by grossing you out.
He can also just work off of tension.
And again, it does make it feel more like a 70s horror flick, because movies like Texas Chainsaw, The Omen, even The Exorcist and stuff like that don't really have tons of on-screen violence and stuff like that. A lot of it's just more left to your imagination to think about. And the little bit of special effects in this flick that there are I'm gonna say like 99% practical, which I definitely appreciate, and again helps it from keeping getting dated or anything like that.
There are a lot of good things to say. I mean, the Bathsheba makeup looks very, very scary. Honestly.
Yeah, she looks like she needs some lotion.
Yeah, for real, girl, you look ashy. The chair flip during the exorcism.
The exorcism at the end, I do think that's cool too, because at this point we've kind of seen every exorcism trope possible.
Yeah.
And I think that this does a pretty good job of having an exorcism scene that does try some new stuff, where, like you said, the chair comes up and flips upside down and stuff. That's okay. And I even like, too, that the exorcism doesn't work because of a spiritual component.
Yeah.
You know, what eventually brings her out of the possession is Lorraine Warren being like, remember your kids and that corny day at the beach that you had.
Mother's love.
Aww. It's kind of cheesy, but I like that.
It saved Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's very true. But I like that it doesn't go into the spiritual realm to solve the problem. I like that it's found in real world stuff. So I like that about it too.
Yeah.
So Steve, now that we've filled these people in about this movie, what do you got to say about an overall rating on a scale of 1 to 5 claps?
Well, I like James Wan's direction. I think the script is well written and obviously shows a lot of care was put into it. I like haunted house movies, though I don't believe in ghosts myself. The way that this movie keeps the tension going without using jump scares, I really appreciate.
I understand that.
And I do think that the acting really shines in this, because everyone has been around for a long time. They know what they're doing. Vera Farmiga, I think, is specifically really good in this movie. I think she's great in everything.
Yeah, she is.
I would say for me, this movie gets a 2.5 claps.
2.5 claps. That's the sound of one hand clapping at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty legit review. There's a lot of stuff in this movie to like. Again, the lack of CGI, the whole kind of 70s vibe this flick has is cool, but it just doesn't bring a lot to the table for me. So I think that this movie, to me, if you're new to the horror genre and maybe you haven't seen a lot of these classic flicks of yesteryear, I think you'll probably enjoy this movie a lot more than me. And it is, again, kind of like a greatest hits. It's going to be cherry picking a lot of the best parts of the entire genre. So, you know, if you're new to horror, I would say definitely watch this movie. But if you're a jaded piece of crap like me that's seen a lot of stuff, you'll just be sitting here watching this going, okay, that's from Amityville, that's from The Exorcist, that's from The Shining. But overall, is it bad? Is it a badly made movie? Absolutely not. To me, it's kind of whatever. I would just rather watch Amityville or something like that. So for me, this is getting a score of 2 claps.
So between the two of us, that's 2.25 claps. A high five is 0.25.
Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you want to hear all of our thoughts and ramblings about The Conjuring, be sure to listen to episode number 73 of the podcast, which you can find on basically any podcast app.
It's a good one.
Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for new videos every week. They can also follow us on them social medias.
Yeah, you can catch us at Dead Lovely Pod on the Instagram and the Twiddles. And we have a Facebook group, Dead and Lovely Horror Movie Podcast.
We want you.
We do.
Thanks again for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for another sick video next week.
Bye.
You did it.